Well, hey everyone, welcome back. My name's Scott and this is Nathan. And as always, we are working through some good books and hopefully you might pick up these books if you have a chance and read them yourself. We just tend to highlight things that stand out to us from each chapter or section, and often we will bend them towards recovery and how they relate because we both work with a ministry called Celebrate Recovery here at Christ Community Church. Love to have you join us on any Monday night. With that said, we are currently working through the book called Leading with Emotional Courage. It's by author and consultant Peter Bregman. And Nathan recommended this book, and I'm really glad he did. I'm getting a lot out of it personally. It's both motivational and practical.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so right now we are on part 2, and it's on focus their energy, meaning focusing the energy of others that you are working with. And chapter 31 in particular, actually, Nathan, you have the book and I've been listening, and I don't think I've asked you this before, but is he saying, I know he said gifted, there's 3 G words here, gifted, the third word is generous. Is the second word gain or game?
Game, like a board game. G-A-M.
Oh, that makes sense. So,
someone, well, we'll get to it, but I'll tell you what the description is. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What stood out to you?
I did like the simplicity of the 3 things that he's talking about. He's talking about the qualities that you want to cultivate. The way I think of it in terms of Celebrate Recovery in the recovery world, oftentimes we come with a hurt, habit, or hang up, and that is actually what we're focusing on. But again, we can't say enough that instead of focusing on the hurts, habits, and hangups, rather focus on what area God has gifted you. What giftings, what strengths has he gifted you? You and I have talked about Strengths Finder, and I just think it's a real positive way to really try and multiply what God has given you, the things that he has blessed you with, to really see wins in your life. You see the value you're bringing to different things, whether it's the workplace or in the home. And in this case, knowing your giftings and your strengths from the point of view is I'm aware of them and I'm aware of how I'm using them goes a really long way to focusing on something that's positive, something that's more uplifting.
Absolutely. It makes me think of the book we did several months ago, The Purpose-Driven Life. And if we can come to a place where we believe, as you and I would say, this is what God's created us to do, in as much as we can determine in that, this is what we get excited about, this is what motivates us. If we know where our strengths are, where we're gifted, exactly what you said, that will help us to focus. And so from a recovery point of view, if I'm trying to pull myself through recovery, if I can come to a firm conclusion on what my strengths are, that's going to be a big positive for me to move forward in my recovery. How am I gifted? And then game.
Right.
Tell us about game.
Right. Okay, so game. I'll give you an example. I've run some obstacle course races, and I'll look over to my friend and be like, hey, this is a tough thing. Are you game? Which means, are you willing to take a risk? Are you willing to put yourself out there? Are you willing to try and do something that's challenging? Are you going to be open to committing yourself to work hard at it? And so game is kind of that reference to, you game for something, you game for this. It's that element of risk taking at this point to move into something that that you're not sure at what level you can handle, but I think it's really something to put ourselves to depend on other people as well to accomplish something that you know we are uncertain, but knowing that others are with us, we're willing to do it.
Excellent. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
from a recovery
So
point of view, am I in it? Do I really want a different life effectively? Do I really want to be a
yes,
different person? And who should I surround my with that's game? Who's in it?
that's
Um, in recovery, we talk about sponsors and accountability partners and going to meetings.
right.
With the assumption being we're meeting with other people. We can't do this alone. So we need other people who are totally into not only their recovery, but also invested in ours. And hopefully over time, we will become that person. We're into our
Right.
motivation becomes being game to help somebody else through theirs.
Absolutely. And that's a big risk for people too, to being able to feel like they have the capacity to help someone. But it often calls us to rise above from where we were at.
Yep. So that naturally leads into the next one, which is generous. So we have gifted, game, and now generous. In the framework of the book, it's you want people on your team who are putting the company above themselves. They're
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
resisting the urge to shine above others.
Yeah.
And so with generous, again, hopefully we will become that kind of person. As we
Hmm.
say in Celebrate Recovery, service is part of your recovery. And so
Absolutely.
you got to have that heart of generosity, to use Peter Bregman's word here, that you want to turn around and pour yourself into others. And you
Yeah.
might think early on, well, why would I want to do that? Right? I got to focus on myself. But
Yeah.
the amazing reality is when I start to serve others, when I'm generous towards others,
Hmm.
it builds them up, but it also builds me up too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, a great short list to be thinking about. So,
Yep.
all right. Chapter 32, though, engage from the beginning. The farm to table method of focusing the energy of your team. Now, I really liked this because I think there's something special to be had when he's talking about this kind of thing. So um, he's talking about taking his family to a farm and they actually go out and milk some goats. And he says it's an experience thing. When you drink that milk, you'll have a much deeper appreciation for the taste because you know where it came from. Actually, saw the goat. It came from. No, I don't drink goat milk, but what he's saying is when you have that kind of ownership from start to finish, it is a much more powerful road to walk.
That's right. Um, so then, in terms of recovery, I mean, the principle that stood out to me that he said is where and when you enter a process is a
Yeah.
strong determinant of how connected you'll feel to an outcome.
Yeah.
And so that's true, right? I mean, how much am I invested?
Yeah, so think about it this way. There are plenty of principles to apply, lessons, but when it comes down to it, if you take ownership and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna put this together. In the morning, I'm gonna do this. Home, I'm gonna call someone so I avoid some of the unhealthy mental tracks that I get on. you are taking ownership from start to finish your day, instead of just kind of letting the CR program sort of tell you a few things here and there. You've now said, okay, I'm going to take what's given, but I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make today a win. And I'm going to basically plan for those times that I know that I might be more likely to fail in some way or make a mistake or something like that. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, when he goes in and develops the plan and the process with the team, they automatically have ownership because they were part of the development of the solution itself. And so people coming to CR and even step study, you need to get them to give not just the input, but to say, okay, this is how it's going to work best for me, because it needs to be specific for each individual.
Absolutely. And a corollary to that is, it's not uncommon for us to see people attend our Celebrate Recovery meeting and also attend somebody else's recovery meeting in the same week. I know of a person who was attending 3 Celebrate Recoveries a week. And we also see people attend our CR meeting and they might attend AA or NA or what have you. They are taking ownership of their recovery, which makes it more likely that they will succeed.
Yeah. I mean, it's as easy as saying, if you want to go into a gym and say, hey, I'm ready to lose 20 pounds, and you hire the trainer to go get to work, it doesn't matter how much the trainer's going to work out. You have to do it yourself.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point. Really doesn't matter what kind of shape he or she is in at the end of the day.
That's right. The trainer can't lose the 20 pounds for you. He can show you how to do it. Okay.
All right. So then that rolls us into chapter 33, which is helping others be trustworthy, the secret to ensuring follow through. Now, I just found this chapter helpful in general. He's asking the question, when we're working on a team, which we encourage people in recovery to have a recovery team, their own recovery team, how do we ensure follow through? Because I'll be honest, I do see a lot of people don't follow through on their recovery. Let's just say it that way. And so he gives the very practical suggestion in this chapter of creating, he says that usually happens when there's a miscommunication in what he calls the handoff.
Yeah.
So basically, you and I have a meeting, you say your ideas, I say mine, we go back and forth, and then we leave the meeting, and the reality is we both may be a bit vague on exactly who's doing what next.
Right.
So,
I think
what's
this
the solution?
I think this applies to even just the last chapter we talked about. CR delivers the message or testimony, worship, but what's the handoff? The handoff is when you leave that room, when you leave the doors, when you leave the open share group or the study, it's on you, and that's the scary part. So what kind of expectations do you have for yourself? What kind of priorities do you have for yourself when you leave Celebrate Recovery? I remember one person saying, recovery doesn't happen in those meetings. It happens outside of the meeting, and we come to those meetings and we celebrate the recovery. And of course there's lessons and stories and things like that, but it's all the other time that we're actually looking at, trying to win against, either an addiction, a habit, or whatever we're carrying. So I think, to me, the handoff is every transition each week. If you're coming to Celebrate Recovery or you're in a group, that handoff happens as soon as you go out the doors, you're getting in your car, and I think they apply. And the first question is, what do you understand the priorities to be? And And I think it makes a difference between something as easy as saying, I'm just trying to beat this thing, versus, you know what, actually connecting, really learning what real connection with my family is a top priority, because that is what actually helps me defeat the other piece.
Yep. And he goes on to give 6 more. Again, I
Right.
encourage you to read the book. These are great questions
Yeah.
that will help you clarify the next steps for any project you might be working on with another person,
Yeah.
but anything that you're planning for your own recovery, plan.
Yeah.
Question, and some of these are actually built in. I think of when we do, Nathan, you mentioned step studies. When we do a step study, some of the questions are very specific. Like his 6th question, Peter Bregman's in this book, is when will we next check in on progress issues? It's that detailed. And
Yeah.
in our step study, one of the questions is, who will your sponsor be? Or when will
Yep.
you when will you begin your personal inventory? And he gets down to that granular level, because if you don't, things often get dropped. It's just human nature.
It needs to be granular. It needs to be gritty, because we are talking about major forces in our life that keep us from feeling free, or keep us from feeling like we can maybe even connect to God in certain ways without shame. And they're great questions that do get down into the, okay, this is action time. And we want you to, we want you to feel like you can make it, that you can rise to the challenge, just like the last 2 chapters actually we just talked about. So
Yep. So again, excellent material, a lot of crossover here with recovery, I hope, as you can tell from our conversation. So that is it for this session, and we hope you can join us next time as we'll take a look at chapters 34 through 36 of Peter Bregman's book, Leading with Emotional Courage. Great to spend this time with you as always. We'll see you again next time.